All right, that's awesome. Thanks, Jim.
You've seen what other people have had to say. Now it's time for you to put this stuff in action for you and for your family. We'll see you at the next event.
All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Opportunity Zone. Super excited to see you guys all here. Carlton, I see you zoom in. Be careful out there driving. Jose looks like he's in the car as well. Nate looking sharp as ever. Let's bring you up here so that everybody can see you. Looking good. How's your day going, sir?
Man, happy Tuesday. Got a lot happening in the world of real estate today, so I'm excited about this week's show.
Awesome. Well, we have got a lot in store for you guys today. If you guys saw last week, jobs report came out. There are a couple things going on. Inflation is coming back up. They've been talking about what's going to happen with interest rates. We're going to be talking about that. We're also going to be talking about some other data that came out has to do with Americans overspending on houses. Houses are now worth over $1 million, like 1 out of 10 houses. Nate, when you started buying properties, I don't know, 15 years ago, how many properties do you think were over $1 million?
Well, I have no idea what the actual count is, but I know that the median, it's not only that the median house prices moved up, that's part of it. Like everyone has seen, prices have doubled since COVID in some markets, but it's not even that. It's the fact that the monthly payment has also gone up a staggering amount. When you've got interest rates and house prices at these record highs, it's putting the squeeze on a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. I just remember, I don't know, back in like 2002, 2003, like most of the houses I looked at were like 30, 40, maybe like the high end was 150. And now, here we are 20 years later. It's been a while for sure. But now the fact that 1 out of 10, they said like one out of like 9.5 houses over $1 million. It sounds great when you say like I own $1 million house, but the payment has gone up exponentially as well. So we'll be getting into what that means for you guys as investors, whether you're single family or multifamily. We're also going to be talking about the rental market. The rental market is still going strong. We're going to be talking about that. And we're going to be talking about housing cost issues for the middle class. We've got a study from Harvard that came in that we're going to share with you guys. A lot of things going on. We're also going to be talking about where you can park your money. We've got some great investment opportunities in store for you. Big day going on out there. And Nate, just to recap, you're in Florida. Everything's okay down there, right?
Yeah, the hurricane, thank God, did not hit this week or last week rather, as hard as the one 2 weeks prior. So I know there's still a lot of people that are being like literally going through kind of a living hell in North Carolina, in different parts of the country. So our thoughts and prayers still need to be with them. But Florida did not get hit anywhere near as bad this round.
Yeah, that makes me grateful. I'm glad nothing bad happened to you and you guys are safe and sound and the world is still on its right axis. Makes me happy. I'm sure it makes you guys happy too. You look out your window and the world is going along as normal. I know my mom is they usually go down to Florida, not too far from you, for the winter break, and they are starting down there, I believe, a couple days. They held off because they saw the weather. So
yeah, I got a chance yesterday to go fly to our newest asset, Barksdale Flats. And I met our lending partner there, and none of the flights, it's connection flights only from Florida to Memphis, and none of the flights got messed up or anything like that. Everything has been restored. It's back to normal again. But I'm going to talk about that Memphis deal in a little bit too, because there's some interesting insights that I saw on site on that property.
Awesome. All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and jump into it, but how do we start every meeting here at Home Invest, Nate?
Cool. You guys cool if we say just a quick word? Cool. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity. We've got a lot of bright minds coming together for this weekly show. Please just, in the uncertainty leading up to political tensions, some economic tensions that are out there, please just let us hit the right topics today and answer the questions directly and give people wisdom and insights that they need to make decisions going forward. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, let's go ahead. We were going to bring Mike up. Do you know if Mike's on here?
I told him 3:15 originally, and then I tried to change that, but we'll have a special guest here in about 10 minutes or so. Maybe we just give it a little bit of time.
Okay, no problem. So we do have a special guest coming up. We're going to be talking about manufacturing in the US. We're going to be talking about our latest offering up there. So we will circle back to that. Do you want to talk about Barksdale a little bit, just since you were there?
Yeah, I do. So thank you guys. A lot of you are partners in this deal. We put out a deal a couple weeks ago now, and it filled up immediately. It filled up in 8 days, $3.5 million deal. This asset that we found, what's happening in the marketplace as a whole is that cap rates readjusted in multifamily. Let me speak in 10-year-old terms because I got a 10-year-old son. My 10-year-old son, Bianco, what I explained to him is that when interest rates go high, what happens is that it puts a stranglehold on the market. Sellers can't sell for these outrageous prices anymore because interest rates are too high. The next buyer coming to buy that asset can't reach that high because their debt costs would be too much. So it started to push prices down, and we bottomed out. We bottomed out in multifamily. Multifamily for the first time since 2009 has come down. And now you've got the big funds like Blackstone that are going hog wild and buying. Well, in the midst of all of this, there were some borrowers that took out short-term loans. They did it 2 years ago, and they took out these loans called bridge loans. And unfortunately, for a lot of them, the bridge loans are starting to expire. And that's what happened. This asset that we just picked up, the sellers paid, and hear me on this part, they paid $5.7 million for it 2 years ago. We just closed it last week for $3.5 million 2 years later. And it's not that they destroyed the building or anything like that. Physically, it's a gorgeous building, Class A, just beautiful, beautiful building. What they did is they tried to convert it into a short-term rental for traveling nurses. And that business plan, as a lot of you guys know, short-term rentals have slowed down quite a bit. And unfortunately, their business plan failed and their loan expired on them. So we were able to step in and buy that property. And now it's incredible to see like the speed in which we were able to move. But obviously, you guys as partners, a lot of you guys are here on this call. You guys saw how good of a deal it was, and we were able to act on it really fast. We anticipate more of them. They will be coming. They're not out there publicly marketed. You don't see them on Crexi or LoopNet or anything like that, but there's more coming. We're tracking them very closely. Just know that your team here is working on them very hard right now.
Nice. What did you see when you were there in person, Nate?
Oh, goodness. I actually got more excited after I left the asset. I was in a little bit of disbelief. I was working with, we worked this as a team. We worked so hard to make sure that we did all the due diligence. And I kept asking myself in the middle of it, how is this deal so good? What am I missing? Do they have some lien that hasn't been disclosed? Do they have some a UST, like a buried tank underneath? Like I kept asking myself, what am I missing? What am I missing? And we hunted that thing. We played like Sherlock Holmes detective style. We went all out, the entire team digging into it. We had 9 guys on site, literally inspecting it from head to toe and trying to look for what was wrong. And so I still had that little bit of feeling in me, like, what surprise am I going to have? And yesterday I went back to it. That's the first time since closing that I went back to it. And I walked away thinking, wow, God, you really blessed us. This is amazing. So that was my big revelation coming out of yesterday's meeting. It wasn't too good to be true. We got a little bit of work to do, mind you. It's not free lunch for anybody, but it's a beautiful asset. The lender, he flew in from New York City to meet me. And he walked away saying, wow, you guys did amazing. I would do a deal like this every month with you guys. So that was another reassurance. This guy's a guy that's closing one deal every single week nationwide, and he was very impressed with this asset.
Awesome. I mean, that's what you want to hear from the lenders, especially, I mean, it was crunch time at closing. We got it done. But they had us jumping through some hoops. They had a lot of questions for us, but we got it all done. You heard Nate say we funded it all in 8 days, which is pretty amazing. I know Sue's on here. Sue took a lot of those calls. We were meeting with a lot of people. If you guys are interested in learning about how we find distressed assets, how we put together the funding for them, we actually have an exclusive webinar coming up next Thursday, the 24th. If we have, I don't know if Paige is on here. I can grab that link. We have, you have it?
Yeah, I'll get it.
Okay, I've got it. It's right here. I'll put it in the chat for you guys. If you are interested in learning about how we find them, how we fund them, what kind of stuff Nate looks through for them, you can go to the link that I just dropped in the chat. That is going to be an exclusive webinar next Friday where we are going to be breaking that down for you guys. Really cool. The asset does look amazing. Super modern, has kind of a fun flair to it. And it's got some penthouse suites up top, which, I mean, I always like those. Can't complain about that. All right. We are going to move into the news. I know Mike is going to be coming on here in a little bit.
And we got him now. He's here, so we can I can do a quick overview and then we can bring him up whenever you want.
Yeah. Let's pull Mike up here. Nate, if you want to go ahead and give him the intro. And Mike, I found you. We're adding you into the mix. There we go.
Cool. Mr. Fritz, how are you, man?
Oh, I have to unmute him.
You got muted. There you go.
There we go.
And,
hey, how we doing, gentlemen? How we doing?
Good.
Good.
Good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you
Mike,
as well, Steve.
I'm going to leave you in suspense. I'm going to leave everyone wondering, who the heck is this mystery guy? Just for a minute. I know a lot of people already know you, but I'm going to just give an overview of what you're building. And those of you that are looking for a deal right now to potentially invest in, pay attention to this. And then after I get done, we're going to flip it over to Mike and we're going to open up for Q&A. Okay. Mike is a guy that we've been investing in real estate with for a long time. And then he chose to go in a little bit different direction, one that's very unique, and it's producing some of the best returns that we've seen here at Home Invest. After doing this now for nearly 2 decades, almost 20 years, and doing over 1,000 deals, it's refreshing to see someone come with a new aspect. So let me lay it out for you. Okay. So for those of you that we haven't met before, hello, I'm Nate from Home Invest. We completed well over 1,400 real estate deals start to finish. But what I'm going to talk to you about today is a little bit different than just real estate. This is more of industrial real estate. I'm not going to get into all the other stuff on the slide, like we've won a bunch of awards and things like that. What matters is the actual opportunity. Okay. Our team started because of the guy I'm going to interview in a second, Mike Fritz. We started getting into industrial real estate. Think CNC machine shops, think manufacturing, think if you've ever been in an airplane and you've pressed that little button that makes your seat recline, that was made in a shop like this. If you've ever tapped on the brakes of your car and your car came to a stop, it's because the parts in your brakes were made in a shop like that. Our team presently owns 4 shops and we're about to acquire another one. Every single time that we do this, we get to see impressive stats like this. I'm going to show you this really quick and I want to get into the actual investment. But what this is shipping numbers from one of our shops. We bought the shop and then a year later, if you follow the numbers, and I'm sorry, they're a little bit small on the screen, we improved the revenue on this by 37% year over year in 1 year. Now you might say, well, how? Why? Why is that even possible? There's this concept going on right now called reshoring. You guys remember during COVID, seeing supply chain shut down? Do you remember things getting delayed during COVID? And then there was this talk about, hey, how do we bring this stuff back to America? That's happening right now. There's this big surge for companies to want to control their own destiny with their products, and they're starting to bring them back to US shores again. So these businesses that we're buying, these industrial pieces of real estate, they've been around forever, 30, 40 years in some cases. They're producing money the whole time in good economic times and bad. And we're just taking them and putting them into what you call a roll-up. We're making them modern businesses. We're improving them. We're improving the bottom line. And we're making them something that's more attractive to resell to a private equity group. The way that this works, if you've followed any work on private equity roll-ups, you probably bumped into this guy. This is Adam Coffey. Adam Coffey is very famous for this right here. What it's showing is that tiny little companies, mom and pop, think like that. What they do, if they're going to try to sell to somebody else, they won't get a very big valuation because they're too small. They're tiny. Nobody wants to deal with going there and having a job every single day. Nobody wants to deal with fixing the things that they haven't fixed yet. But as the companies get bigger, they become worth more. Their multiple becomes something that's more attractive, and the private equity groups will pay a lot more for it. So if you think like a bunch of little tiny independent businesses, they're not worth much. But when you streamline the processes and put good management in place, they become worth a lot more. So we're doing that. We've got these shops right now. We're about to buy another one. It'll be the 5th one that goes inside of what's called cash flow fund number 7. This is the final shop that we'll put in this one. We opened this fund up a couple times earlier this year, and each time that we opened it up, it immediately filled. This is the last time that we're going to open up Cash Flow 7 because legally we can't accept any more money in this one. It'll completely fill it up. So if you missed them last time, today is your official reopening, and it will be the last time that you ever see Cash Flow Fund 7 again, because we have to close it after this. We're going to close it because we just can't take more capital. How does it work? Well, if you want to partner with us or you want to explore this, what you do is you jump on a phone call with us. I'll talk about that in a minute. We'll put the link in the chat. Sue, if you wouldn't mind dropping the link, that'd be awesome. But basically, you can come in and be our partner, our true equity partner. What do you get for that? You can get up to a 10% preferred return and 50% of the equity in the deal. It's pretty generous. You might say, if you've done other deals before, you might say, well, hey, why is that so generous? These types of real estate investments, plus the business on site, they generate a lot of cash flow. I'm very proud to say that we've never missed a distribution since opening these. We have one right now that we're producing an extra large volume amount of parts for it. But after the PO goes through, then we pay out distributions on that particular asset too. But we've never missed a distribution because these things pump out so much more cash flow than some of our real estate investments. If you would prefer to do some kind of like short-term lending position and just test this out for a year or so, we have an option for that as well. Both of them start by jumping on a quick 15-minute phone call with us, and we can book those now. But I want to flip it over. Steve, you might have questions for Mike. I know that I do, and I just want to kind of pick his brain. And then anyone that's listening right now, if you want to hear from the guy that's actually running the shops right now every day, we got him right here. Mike Fritz, welcome, man.
It is good to see you, brother. Good to see you and Steve both, and Sue there, man. The whole clan's here.
Awesome.
Mike, here's kind of a burning question, and we get this a lot because we talk to a lot of our investors, and they're like, hey, I don't get it. You know, some people, they start, you know, in real estate, they start with single, then maybe they go to multi, and then maybe they go to car washes. What in the earth? Why didn't you go to hotels or something different? Why did you go to industrial real estate like this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, I saw the reshoring happening. Anytime you look at companies right now, especially in the M&A space or merger and acquisition space, you'll see a lot of flood after industries that are necessity-based. They're building things or doing things that everybody needs. And if you go into those industries and they have a labor shortage, that means there's enough work. Shortage of demand is the biggest thing that hits businesses, right? Unless you don't have enough workers. So what I did was I said, well, what if we could go into a space that is a labor shortage? That means there's enough work, and I can just solve the labor issue. So then I said, okay, but I see a good run of manufacturing over the last decade. Is it going to continue? And last year, China had 13% less products coming from China last year to the States, meaning we bought it from China, had it shipped here. 13% less product coming from China last year, and that is the highest drop in 3 decades, 30 years. So what's happening is a lot of people to control two things: quality and on-time delivery. Right? You can't; those two things are very hard to control especially on a high specialized parts overseas. And so there's a statement in manufacturing that we say is American-built products don't get stuck on shipping containers. And so what happens is they're bringing it back on American soil, and it's driving the market northeast. In fact, most manufacturers in our space had their best year ever in 2023. That was their best year ever. Every shop I've looked at their historical financials in the last year, 2023 was their best year. They took a dip for COVID, everybody did, and then they watched them climb out it was a slingshot. It came back and then it went up. And so I started saying, like, if we can fix the labor issue, that's the market. And when we came here, it's not only been true, but it's been more than I had even anticipated. The other thing I looked at was 10,000 baby boomers a day leaving the workforce. A lot of those started manufacturing companies back in the day. So there's a lot of people retiring with no succession plan. Those manufacturing businesses are going to be parted out at an auction unless somebody steps in and holds that cash flow together, which is what we decided to do. We're keeping real American family legacies together and making parts for customers. It's one of the most fun things I've ever done. And our ultimate mission with this is to roll up companies, like Nate said, but our ultimate mission is to add 1,000 jobs to the manufacturing space in the United States. And that's why the thrust of what we're doing is right here. It's right down the road. It's building everything you use on a daily basis right here in the States. And so I love that. That's why I went into the manufacturing space.
Okay, but it begs one serious question. You talked about labor shortage. How do we deal with labor shortage in a manufacturing environment?
Most people that own manufacturing businesses, especially the baby boomers, they did not adopt. There are a lot of engineers. They did not adopt the people skills that need to go along with it for the future. So if with people skills, what we do is we go and partner with tech colleges and high schools. So we are partnered with the tech colleges and high schools in our local areas, and we're getting fed people straight from the classroom, and we're training them. So we basically built an internship program with all of our shops that we'll do a 3-day-a-week program. Anybody from high school or college, we'll give a 3-day-a-week program. They go to college 2 days a week. They work at our shop 3 days a week. And as soon as they're done with their tech degree, we hire them. We have 3 people in our organization right now over the last 5 months that we've done that with. And so we partner with the department heads at each tech college. Just takes a little bit different way of thinking. We have to get at these, I call it, we have to get at them before Indeed. They go on Indeed, they're going to see 5,000 opportunities. But what if they see us right next to their professor as they're going through school? So we partner with high schools and tech colleges to get them before anybody else has a chance.
So you've solved the labor shortage for this business. Like, you feel good there.
Yeah. And so the other thing we do, so that's ground level. For high level leadership, we're partnered with 2 recruitment organizations that all they do is recruit for CNC jobs. That's all they do. And so we have an agreement with them. We get a better rate because I hire more people, and they are on the lookout. Anybody $40 an hour above or in that range of, call it 80 to 100,000, you partner with people that can basically look around the country and bring you the people they need. And with what we're building, we're one of the few shops that has ascension into leadership. Most of the people, the shop manager's it. But with us, you could go to a regional manager. You could go to regional sales. You could start leading multiple shops and start leading leaders. There's more steps in our ecosystem that don't exist in single shop organizations.
Mike, so I've invested, you've invested, Steve's invested, Sue's invested, like all of us internal team members, like we know the finances, we know the structure, like we've invested, but we had one question that came up with some of our early investors that I'd love for you to answer, because it's a question that I sat with and I needed to really solve before we're doing it. The biggest risk in this business is that you're producing a whole bunch of parts for a customer, and the customer gets them and says, hey, I don't like this. This isn't going to work. This is defective, or some version of that. How do you solve that risk?
Yeah. So, well, when a customer issues a purchase order to us, they give what's called a rev or a revision. So we take that revised print to the exact specs they've ordered, and we have quality departments at every single shop. So a part doesn't go out the door that doesn't match the exact specifications that have been asked for by the customer. So if they do not match the specifications, it can't go out our door. And we have had issues where it gets bumped in shipping. Maybe a tolerance gets knocked out. Then we just remake those parts that were in that box. That happens very rarely because we are very careful when you're shipping parts that need to be literally a tenth of a thousandth, like a millionth, that is, tolerance on metal. Temperature can change it. So we make sure that it doesn't go out the door if it's not right. And we've never had a part recalled, that's come out of our shop. We had a part recalled that came out of a vendor, and they owned it and they fixed the issue, and we were able to deliver to our customers. But in our space, if they issue a PO, it's contract. They don't go back on you. So you got a PO, you know that they've asked you contractually to make those parts, and as long as they're to specs, we've never had a part come back. And that's just the industry. In fact, it's more the other way. Customers are out there looking for shops that can do 2 things: deliver quality parts on time. That's all they want. Quality parts on time. Now, what we offer is what we call putting the part in partnership. We offer an actual consultant for them, where we go to their shop every other month to our customers and walk through their processes and make sure there's any way we could make things faster, do things in batch orders, things that would service them. So they're like, dude, I can get a shop online, but I can't get a partner online. That's a lot harder to find. So that's how we ensure we're not getting parts back and fall tripping over that whole landmine, because we make sure that we have the right vision and have the right partnerships.
Okay, I only got one more question, and I'm going to toss this back to Steve. And my question is this: about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, we closed a multifamily together, Pine Tree Path, and
Yep.
we had our team members there. They were literally knocking on every single door, meeting the tenants, going through the lease with them. Like, we knew how to take that building over.
Yep.
In a shop like this, industrial real estate like this, you got employees, you got customers, like you got some customers that have been there for 20 years. How do you not rock the boat and break what's already working? Like, how do you get in there and assure everyone that it's going to be a smooth transition?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we have a 90-day contract with every seller that they help us, they help us transition for 90 days. And there's 3 things that need to be done in that time frame. You have to meet with the employees, you have to meet with the customers, and they have to learn the systems. And that's it. And so in that 90 days, we're meeting with customers, and it's like a baton handoff in the Olympics. The seller is going with us, handing that baton off to us, so we don't lose customers in that process. And then the same thing happens with the employees. Sometimes this might scare the living daylights out of you. It did me when I got into the industry. But a lot of times the employees don't know the business has been sold. You show up day one, you're their new boss, and they don't even know it yet. And so that transition can be rocky if you have not handled that before. And so we go on site, and we specifically that day, we love on them. One of the things we do with all the employees to keep them is we ask their raise schedule, and we give them a raise the first month after we close. And so as long as it fits in the market. And most of the shops are buying, they're underpaid anyway. And so that's the other. So we meet with customers, meet with employees, and then we're just on site for 2 to 3 months, learning their systems, learning their bookkeeping, learning their process, how they build route sheets, meaning where it goes in the shop and how it gets out the door. We're just learning their systems. Learning the systems is the easiest part. Employees is the second hardest. Customers is the first hardest, because customer one might really have an attachment to the seller, so we have to make sure. But let me tell you how we get around that quickly, Nate. When we go to a customer, we say, hey, you know how you have to multi-source? Every customer out there, their boss is saying, did you get 3 quotes for this part? Making sure it is the right thing. Yeah. Okay. Well, what if the shop you hired, this is their boss talking to the purchasing manager who buys from us. Yeah. But what if that shop goes away? Who are you going to go to then? What it gives us the ability to do is, I'll tell you what, I'll give you 3 quotes from 3 different of our machine shops that have 3 different shop rates and 3 different teams. And if any one of us goes away, you still have a backer. So you can get 3 quotes from 1 point of contact, and you get complete insurance against your parts on 1 point of contact. All of a sudden, nobody has that sales pitch. Nobody. And so that's the value of having 5 shops, and soon to be 6 and 7 and onward. That's the value of that, is because they're like, oh, and do you have other capabilities? It's funny you say that. Every shop has its own specialty. We're a catalog of specialists, not a generalist. So you actually get a catalog of people that do that thing, and that's all they do. Nobody else has that. So by building this, we've actually created something for our customers that nobody out there is offering, which gives us a leg up, and which is really what keeps our customers with us.
Amazing.
It's awesome.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate
Absolutely.
this. Steve?
I've got one question for Mike, and then I would like to go through the deal one more time. Mike, the
Sure.
question I got a lot when people started talking to me, I mean, we did, between Sue and I, we raised everything that was in the fund pretty much. One of the questions was, when the economy goes into recession, and Nate, you kind of talked about this in the beginning with reshoring, but like when the economy goes into recession, what stops people from actually pulling out? And I would love to hear you talk a little bit about the customer base that we have at the shop, because a lot of these customers have been with us for a long, long time, and they're actually looking to take on more.
Yeah. So the first thing we do when we buy any shop is we meet with our customers and say, do you have anything else? And usually that shakes loose work. Not always, but usually. Now, to your point of what about economic recession and economic turbulence, the truth of the matter is that happens in every industry. One of the things with the Dayton shop, the reason we're buying the Dayton shop, and I don't know if they have said this to you yet, it has a specific certification that allows us to do Department of Defense work. Ironically, when the economy goes down, defense work goes up. That's one of the reasons we're buying this shop, is to continue to bring defense work, DOD, Department of Defense. You can work for the government and that often aerospace and government work really protects you because things fly, and sadly there's a lot of war, and that drives a lot of our DoD work. And so, but that being said, it's not economically completely like, oh, it'll never go down. In fact, election years, every fourth year in manufacturing, you have a down year. This year, because people don't know who the president's going to be. So this year is actually the lowest in the last 4 years. But next year, all that pent up demand, they're saying 2025 could possibly be the biggest year in manufacturing in the last 25 years, because of pent up demand, especially of this year. When Kamala announced she was switching out for Biden, then it stopped even more. People are scared. But when that releases, dude, people are still buying parts. So right now there's a pent up demand. Our customers are saying, listen, after the election, I hope you guys have capacity, because we have orders that we're not allowed to release until November 12th or whatever the date is, but they're coming. And so that kind of stuff that happens, right? And so in economic turbulence, you also, if manufacturing goes down, there's buffers against that. That's why layoffs happen, but you cut your staff for a time and then you bring your staff back up. So you cut down to what you need. So there's levers we pull to make sure we always have work. But there's one thing 97% of machine shops do not do. They do not market and they do not sell. They take what comes their way. One of the way to buffer against that is have a powerful sales force. 3 out of the last 5 shops we bought didn't even have a website. Yeah, you heard me right. Didn't even have one. I'm not talking like it was a bad one. There were some of those too, but they didn't even have one. And so, anyway, just a side note on that from an economic perspective.
Well, I hope you guys can see how excited Mike is. Sue put the link in the chat. Sue, if you want to put it one more time, just in case some people joined us late, if you would like to talk to us about investing in Cashflow Fund 7, this is going to be open. Nate said this at the beginning. They close out really fast. Because this is something different than multifamily, it offers a great cash flow. If you're looking for something a little bit different in your investment portfolio, we've seen really strong returns. We believe that we are going to continue seeing that. As Mike stated, 2025 might be the biggest year ever in manufacturing. We'll be talking about this some more, but if you'd like to ask myself or Sue questions, you can book a call with us. Sue put the link in the chat. Mike, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. He's going to be hanging out for a little bit. If you guys want to put questions in the chat, if you have any questions specifically, you can put them in there, or you can book a call with myself or Sue. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Mike.
Awesome. All right. That was fun. You got to love Mike's energy. I don't know if he drinks coffee or not. I've been told he doesn't, but he sure seems like it.
Yeah, he's very passionate about this whole manufacturing niche. Some people get into these hotels, car washes. Mike chose a different path, but he's crushing it. So I understand why he is. Do you know what right now? They're at $860,000 in Cashflow Fund 7. Mike's leadership has us at $860,000 in net profit. That's called EBITDA. That's today. It's already cash flowing that much today. And by the next shop that we're adding to it, this one in Dayton that he just mentioned, it's going to go up by another $500,000. So it'll be around 1.35 when it's all said and done with this last shop. So it's pretty powerful right out of the gate.
Pretty awesome. All right. We are going to jump in and talk about the news a little bit. I see there are a couple questions in the chat. We'll come back to that. We'll get all your questions answered. Don't worry. All right. We're going to jump into the news. Inflation going back up. There's a lot of speculation about, are we going to see another rate cut or not? Nate, I don't know if you got a chance to read this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So will there be a rate cut? That's the $1 million question right now. I think that there will. Now, why is there even any speculation? Didn't the Federal Reserve just come out and say we're going to cut rates the rest of the year and next year? Yes, they did. They set that expectation. Remember, the reason the Federal Reserve raised rates in the first place faster than any time ever in economic history is because they were trying to kill inflation. That was Jerome Powell's stated mission. We need to kill inflation, so we're going to raise rates. And they just came out the last time that they met and they said, guess what? We killed inflation. We're good. Now we got to save the economy. We're going to make this a soft landing. So they started to take down the rates. when I'm talking to my 10-year-old son, I always explain the rates kind of like kids at a birthday party with a piñata. The Federal Reserve is the kid with the stick. The economy is the piñata. The way that they crush the piñata or crush the economy is they hit it with the stick. That's raising interest rates. If they want to save the piñata or save the economy, then what they do is they just pull the piñata up in the air. They'll start to lower rates. So right now, the reason that there's some debate on whether they will actually cut rates again or not is because, dun, 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 inflation's back. Inflation is rearing its ugly head again. And this probably shouldn't surprise too many people, because when you go to the grocery store, if you're anything like me, you still freak out a little bit. We ordered groceries to be delivered to the house last week and they didn't show up. So I ran to the store quick on Saturday before mother-in-law's birthday. And I remember walking out of the grocery store with 3 bags that cost me $300. And I'm like, this is still inflating. So the data's out though, and they're showing it. So now you got a couple of folks that have high-level Fed Reserve positions, and they're saying, I would be okay skipping the next meeting. I would be okay not lowering rates. So there is speculation out there. There's speculation that they might not, but I still think they will. I still think they'll cut a quarter point just so they can do what they projected they would do.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, inflation coming back, they thought they had killed it off, and it is still coming back, which, I mean, it means that there's good economy, like there's money moving, which is a good thing, right? But it is bad that prices are still going up. So it'll be interesting to see what they say. I read through this and I mean, you can see down here, I'm totally comfortable skipping the meeting if the data suggests that it's appropriate. They've got to decide. I mean, that's why these guys are in charge, supposedly. So we'll see what happens there. But what has happened in the meantime is we saw record amount of refinances when the rate dropped. But what had happened is mortgage lenders had kind of priced that in a couple weeks ahead of time. So now that has kind of stayed off a little bit, and it's tied off, and people are waiting to see what's going to happen. And it's interesting. So I guess we'll have to wait and let that one play out. We do have the election coming up. I think we're going to see kind of a pause around that until after the election anyway. Kind of takes us into the next step, where middle Americans are being squeezed by housing costs. So I brought this one up. We've got a couple different articles showing this one. This one is from NBC News. It's talking about, so we touched on this. The average house price has gone up and up and up. Nate, you brought this up. Not just the housing price, median house price is going up. What else is going up? The payment. What's happening when more and more people get squeezed? As we see people getting squeezed. Go ahead, Nate.
No, you're probably about to show this. That graph is going to show what the squeeze looks like.
Yeah.
This is the burden. Like, people's burden on housing expense is astronomical right now. So the median income in the United States of America right now, this is everybody in one basket, is $37,000 and some change. Think about that. 37,000, it's 37,585 to be exact. Okay. The median house price right now is $412,000. That's every house in America averaged out, basically $412,000. 10 years ago, it used to be the case that the median income would buy you a median house. Nowadays, you're not buying a $412,000 house on a $37,000 salary. It's just not happening. You couldn't afford it because interest rates are so much higher, so your payments would be too much. It would put you out of reach.
I mean, it's really interesting to see, but this is why we see rental being so strong right now. We're going to get to that in just a second. That topic is coming up today. But just the median price being pushed up, the price being pushed up, this is causing one of the stalls, right? This is one of the reasons that the market is stalling, because more than half of Americans have a house that was locked in pre-COVID at a 3, maybe 3.5% or less interest rate, and they've got a huge amount of equity. They're trying to figure out how to tap that equity. Like, that's becoming more and more of the question. How can I get to the equity? Should I take an equity line with this huge interest rate? Should I sell the house? And right now, we're starting to see a little bit breakthrough here and there, but for the most part, people are still holding. One of the interesting, I went back and tried to find it, Nate. It's one of the articles that we talked about now, I think 4 or 5 weeks ago, where 80% of people who have bought in the last 18 months regret buying the house because their payment is so high. What do you think? What do you think that's going to lead to in the next, I don't know, I would say 6 months to a year?
Well, we're seeing it now. Buyers are on strike and they're not coming back. Even though we just cut rates, even though they're forecasting more rate cuts, buyers are just sitting on the sidelines. I'm watching it right now. Like I'm in Southwest Florida, and not just because of hurricanes did the market seize up. It was before the hurricanes even hit. We've got record drops happening right now in Punta Gorda, record drops happening in that whole area, the greater Port Charlotte area, all the way up to Sarasota. Even Naples is starting to come down in price right now. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a nationwide house meltdown like we saw in 2007, 2008. I think it's going to be very geographic specific, but we are going to see some markets come down. Florida is one of them that's coming down, at least on the West Coast right now. So I think buyers are going to remain on strike up until it's actually affordable for them to go pull the trigger and buy another house.
Well, this is from the Harvard Business School. They actually put out an article on this as well. This is middle income housing problems emerge as affordability challenges climb the income ladder. And to your point, Nate, that you made, a median income used to be able to get you a median house. Well, now a median income might get you a very basic, very small starter house. So what does that mean? I don't know. I've heard some people in the real estate space say, we're going to see 40 and 50-year loans come out. They're going to find ways to make this more affordable. I don't know how, I barely remember back in the late 70s. I remember sitting in line during the oil crisis, and that's when we saw like 13 and 14% housing costs. And that's what they did then. They made the mortgages longer. So we'll see what happens. The last piece to this is rental markets are still red hot. They are quite a bit higher than they were pre-COVID. They've come down a little bit. I think people are locking in prices. I know I've talked to people here. You guys pay attention. I recently moved from Tahoe back to Texas for the winter, and everyone here has talked about they're trying to lock in long-term rental rates. I always rent in short-term executive style housing, but the place that I'm renting right now, everybody's been talking about, I've got a 2-year, 3-year lease. They're trying to lock in long-term rates to stop rent from going up. And I think to your point, Nate, everybody is waiting. They want to wait and see rates come down before they either buy or find a place to live. What have you seen? You just saw Barksdale. Barksdale is Class A, nice housing. What are we doing with pricing there?
Yeah, so we're actually doing something a little bit creative with that space. It was originally built for college students for the Art Institute in Memphis, and the Art Institute went under. So they turned it into a multifamily. But what they failed to do in that building was recognize that it's not really set up for art students who want to share 4 people to one apartment. Instead, it's mostly working professionals that are young, that are enjoying the downtown life, maybe newly married or single, not with kids yet. And so the bigger floor plans are not ideal for that particular neighborhood. You got 5 colleges, including 2 of them being graduate schools, and you have a whole bunch of corporations that are right downtown 6 minutes away, including St. Jude's Hospital 6 minutes away. So what we're doing with the floor plans is we're breaking them up a little bit. We're going to provide more studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms with some reconfiguration. We're having architects do all the sketches for it right now. That will be a better offering for that property for the future. But as far as rents are concerned, we'll end up getting more rent out of it. We'll get more rent out of it than the previous 2 owners were getting out of it for sure. On a market specific stance, Steve, you put up that slide for a second that showed rental markets are red hot. We are still seeing strong rental demand. I know that some markets have seen a little retraction. We're not seeing that. We are seeing some tenants struggling to pay rent. That's happening. That's real. There are some tenants losing their jobs. The economy's getting tighter. Groceries have gone up in price. Car maintenance has gone up in price. So some tenants are struggling a little bit more now than they were a year ago. We definitely know and feel that. We're working through that right now. But base rent prices have not flinched yet. Base rent prices are staying pretty strong in the markets that we are in. I know it's not true in all markets in the country, but where we are, it's been true.
I mean, I would say rental market down here in Texas, when I got back, I looked at a couple different places, and I always strike up conversations. I'm not shy to just talk to people, and stuff that is on the lower end of the cost scale is going very quickly. Think like 2 days or less. And something that I heard was families are moving into smaller places. Now that's not all of them. The executive place that I got, like this place is very nice. I wouldn't say that it's not like A class, A plus, super fancy, but it's nice. It has amenities, and they were willing to make a deal because they have a lot of vacant units. So there's 120 units here, and I would say they're less than a third full because
this
they're
is
on
Austin, right?
South Austin.
Okay.
South
Yeah.
Austin. But they have some people coming in for the winter, and they're doing some short-term leases, but they were willing to move quite a bit on price, just because one, they wanted somebody that was solid coming in. She said that they've had, so I rented a 1 bedroom here. She said they've had families apply for 1 beds, trying to cut costs, moving down, but keep amenities. It's interesting. It's definitely something to pay attention to.
Steve, we're coming to your backyard soon, man. It's on the radar. In fact, when I was speaking with the New York lender yesterday, I said, hey, anywhere in the country, where would you make loans like tomorrow in? And without hesitation, he said Texas. I said,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Really? Like even with hurricanes by Houston. And he's like, well, as long as it's not waterfront, we don't, if it's inland far enough, we don't care. Texas, we think, has the most potential. They took a big digger for about 2 years because taxes and insurance went up at the same time. But now prices have bottomed out. We're really, really bullish on Texas. And when I think about Austin, you guys
Yeah.
had the whole curve. You went up like a rocket and then kind of came down. And I think that there's some really good buys right now.
Yeah, there's I mean, we won't go too far down the Austin rabbit hole, but I've been talking to some people here. Downtown Austin, there was a whole bunch of new building and development going on, and it's paused. And there's a bunch of half-built stuff down there that is changing hands right now. A lot of some of the stuff that is newer built, I would say 5 to 7 years old, that was renting for, I mean, at one time, like a 1 bed down there was $5,500 a month. And now you're seeing those for $3,000, with 2 months, 3 months free to move in. There was one place that was giving free TVs, free recliners, free PS5s, and 2 months free. Man, they're really working hard to get people in. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on that.
And so that sounds scary to the average person. Like, oh my goodness, if there's that much vacancy in a market like Austin, then how can you make money? Here's what happens. For a 2-year cycle, Austin probably is not going to be a pretty market, but that's when the time to buy is. You buy them, and then as those units get absorbed, which they will, because builders stop building. For the most part, builders have been on strike the last 2 years. Builders couldn't get reasonable rates to finance new projects. So all the new builds are coming dry. They're finishing out right now, and then you won't see any for a couple of years. So you buy now in a place like Austin, you budget for the vacancy, and then as it gets absorbed 2 years from today, maybe 3, that's when rents start to go up again, because you'll see another shortage cycle. So I think Austin's going to have some good buys, man.
Yeah, it will. I mean, we'll see this in other places as well. It's just what's happening. If you guys want to learn about distressed real estate, that's what we're talking about right here. People who either built and are unable to rent, or people who had short-term bridge loans that are now expiring and they're having to move the property. We have a super special webinar coming up. It's exclusive. Nate's going to be leading it. He's going to be taking you behind the scenes, showing you, one, how we find these deals. If you guys have been following Home Invest for any amount of time, you know that we are masters at finding off-market properties that do not have brokers or a bunch of middle people involved, always leading to lower prices and phenomenal returns for our investors. Nate's going to be pulling back the curtain and showing you how we find them and how we fund them, putting together the capital stack, raising money for them. We're going to be covering all of it. And that is going to be next week. Paige, if you were still on here, Paige put this all together. I'm going to make sure that we got the link. I'm going to copy the link and put it down there. If you guys want to register for this, it is a free training, but you do need to register. There we go. Nate got it in the chat. So that is going to be next Thursday. We'd love to have you on for that. And if you would like to invest with us in the manufacturing deal, if you want to do something other than real estate right now, we've got that one going. That will fill up very quickly. That was what Mike was talking about a little bit earlier. You can book a call with myself or Sue. I see Sue got the link in the chat there. All right, we're going to move into our teaching section. We're going to wrap it up, Nate. I did sneak in one more article because I thought this just dovetailed so nicely. If you guys have ever had to do home repairs and you started looking around and you've been like, man, I just want somebody to come out. I actually, my girlfriend was sneaking around on Facebook Marketplace trying to find somebody to come redo her windows for cheap because she got a quote and they were way too high. And she was like, I got to find somebody. And I was like, man, if you find somebody that just comes in with a hammer that does this on the weekends, you might actually end up paying more for it. 33% of homeowners would hire a quote questionable contractor to save money. Report finds. Nate, have you ever hired a subpar contractor?
Jose Soto. I know
What happened?
Jose Soto, he came in and he did one kitchen for me on a rental. He did a fair job. It was like $5,000. This is a decade ago. And then the next job, he said, hey, I'll do the next one. $5,000, $2,500 for cabinets, and then $2,500 for labor. I'll get started right away. And I'm like, okay. And I had a little bit of trust for him. So I gave him the money. And that was the last day that I ever saw him. He was gone, fled the state. I sued him, went to court. I won a piece of paper saying that he owed me money called a judgment. Those of you that have ever heard of the whole court process or got a judgment before, you know that that's half of the battle. The other half is that you actually have to collect money. Well, I still have that piece of paper saying that he owes me money. It's worth nothing though. So if I could go back in time, what I would have told my young, naive self is I would have said, Nate, hey, rather than going with the bottom barrel price contractor, why don't you pay up a little bit and get someone in there that's quality, someone that's been around for a long time, someone that has a lot of references, someone that you can hand money to and they're not just going to disappear overnight. So I'm glad that you found this article, Steve. We could probably teach the most important contractor that can solve all the issues that are out there, but you tell me where you want to go with it. Yeah,
that's what we were going to be talking about. Sue's putting some in the chat as well. My story is a little bit different from Nate's. Mine is I would pay the contractor. I found a contractor that did decent work, right? You can pick 2 out of 3, cheap, fast, and good. Well, I picked good and cheap. So it took him 3 times as long to get anything done. And what would happen is I'd give him the $2,500. He would go buy some of the supplies, but then he would get started. Then there would be, oh, I need a little bit more to finish. And we would drag out and drag out and drag out. And it ended up being such a nightmare. You never wanted to deal with it, right? Which meant I tried to deal with a lot of the stuff, which was horrible. But Nate, I do want to talk about how to find the best contractor. We've got to do it in 3 minutes or less. If you guys want to know how to find the best contractor that will actually get paid after the job is done and get the job done in just a few days or less, Nate, how do we find the best contractors?
Yeah, I'll give you the secret right now. And for those of you that are following us on social media, if you've been hearing us talk about like links to click on and register, if you don't see any of that, don't worry, just type the word link in the comments and we'll hook you up with it. Okay. So sorry about that. I didn't do that earlier, but type the word link. And then for those of you that want the best contractor, like if I had to redo in new market, bought a new asset, I needed it done from the ground up, I'm going to throw this at you guys. Let me know in the chat on this. This contractor, I'm going to describe their attributes, and I want you to type in the chat if you think you know this contractor. Number 1, they work for a lot of insurance companies, meaning they come in and they clean up whatever insurance needs are. Number 2, they'll do the whole thing. They can handle any part of the job, electrical, plumbing, carpentry, painting, they can do the whole thing, okay? Number three, they're usually licensed general contractors, which means that they have permission to do all trades, licensed. Number four, probably my favorite. This is the most overlooked part of this kind of contractor. They don't get paid until the job is done, meaning you risk no money up front. They do the job and then they ask for payments. Name that contractor. And I see we got a few really savvy people here. This is a good group, man.
We do. We got two, and I love it. They're both women. They are on it. They know the secrets. It's usually the guys that are like, nope, I'm going to find it cheaper, or I'm going to do it myself. You got to love those people, right? Did you know that falls off of roofs are one of the leading causes? I don't know if it's leading, but it's a rather large cause of guys hurting their backs. I thought that one was funny. That came up in some Facebook group somewhere, and I was like, that's probably true. Guys are like, I'll do some shingles. Don't do that. They are correct. Restoration contractors. So this is not ServPro. Let's be really clear. These are the people that work for ServPro. How do you find them, Nate?
Yeah, so ServPro, I got nothing against them, but let me tell you their business model as I understand it. Okay. What they do, they're a big national company. They market like crazy. They're really, really good at it, but they don't physically have boots on the ground everywhere. They do in a lot of cities, but not everywhere. So what they do in places they don't have boots is they subcontract the work. All that means is that they collect your information, they take your phone call, and then they call a local guy, Steve's Plumbing and Air Conditioning, and they say, hey, will you go out there and fix this, Steve's Plumbing and Air Conditioning? And then local guy fulfills on the contract. And of course, I'm not trying to shred ServPro. I've heard really good things about them, but ServPro is expensive because they're subcontracting the work. Therefore, they've got to make their margin on top of the other one. So how do you get straight to Steve's Plumbing and Air Conditioning, or in this case, Steve's Restoration Services? You want to Google search that keyword, restoration contractor, or fire damage contractor, water damage contractor. Think about any instance that you'd have insurance type situations, there's usually a contractor by that name. Search for those contractors, call them and say, hey, look, I'm an investor in the area. I'm looking for a reliable contractor that can come knock out the whole job for me and bill me once it's done. Is that something you guys are able to do? Call until you find that contractor. We got one of those going up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I remember we had done 400 renovations up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin before discovering this. And when we got this restoration contractor in, my life got infinitely better. They literally would just go in and knock out jobs and submit an invoice. I had never seen that in my life before. Usually contractors are like beating at your door saying, hey, I need money first, money first. But this restoration company changed my world. So if I had to do this all over again and I was blind walking into a new market, that's the first thing that I would do.
All right, there you go. You got it. I think that is one of the coolest tricks that I wish I would have learned early on back in 2002. Guys, this has been the Opportunity Zone for today. I think we brought you a lot of opportunity between Mike talking about the machine shops, between the super secret webinar next Thursday, where Nate is going to be pulling back the curtain on how we find these distressed multifamily properties and how we fund them, and behind following great contractors. Nate, it's been great seeing you today. To all of you out there tuning in, we'll see you next week. If you'd like to book a call with us, the links are in the chat. Jay, good to see you. See Jay Hall hanging out with us. Give him a shout out. Sue, if you want to put the link one more time, if you guys want to book a call with us, go ahead. You can jump on that link. You can book a call with myself or Sue. We will see you next week here on the Opportunity Zone. Until then, be great stewards of what God has given you, and we'll see you here next week. Bye, everyone.